Serious? Fathers who found out their child is not theirs, what happened afterwards? I was accused of being an 11-year-old's father. The mother encouraged me to meet her. She looked like me, so I figured she was mine. I got to know her, and she was adorable. The mother was encouraging me to sign a paper before the results came back, and as much as I was convinced she was mine, I wasn't going to sign my life away on a hunch. A test came back negative. I stopped being invited around. In retrospect, I think the plan was to get me to want to sign the paper. I raised a child for 2 years thinking she was mine. I didn't want kids before she was born, but I loved every minute of being with that little girl. The moment I split up and I ended up moving about 2 hours away but drove back every weekend to be with my daughter. I was also paying $200 a week in child support. Then one Monday after I got home from visiting her, I was served court documents stating that the mother didn't think I was the father. We did a paternity test and she was right. I was not the father. I had the option to continue to be in her life, but I couldn't deal with it emotionally. The court continued to make me pay child support while she tried to find out who the father was. After the third guy she tested came back negative, the judge decided I didn't have to pay child support anymore but could not get any of that money back. $20,000 I'll never see again. I fell into a really dark place personally and professionally. It's been about 1.5 years since this happened and I'm still not over it. I have a lot of trust issues with people that I didn't have before. I also regret leaving. Every day, I miss that little girl a lot. Oh buddy, I'm sorry. I hope you find a place of peace. Ex-wife got mixed up with drugs, had an affair and a baby. We got divorced and she ended up on the streets with her newborn daughter. CPS took the child away and she's been with me for almost 2 years now. Adoption should be final next month. The situation sucks, but it's not the child's fault and she shouldn't have to suffer. How wonderful that you were able to keep her. It was a very strange, but very eye-opening experience. It wasn't malicious or anything, simply that she thought I was the father while later coming to find the doctor mathed wrong. We were a summer fling and her ex and I were around at about the same time. I took the role of father for her entire pregnancy and through his birth. I took off time from school and drove the 8-hour round trip between my university and hometown several times instead of studying or going to a party or taking care of my relationships like all the other college students around me. My lovely girlfriend, not the mother, was more supporting than anyone could ask of a then 19-year-old, and I'll never be able to repay her for that immense amount of encouragement. When I got the call to book it back home, I drove way too fast and way too sleep deprived all the way, while anticipating how my life was going to be forever altered with this life that was now my responsibility to nurture and teach. Timothy's birth was beyond emotional and I felt an insanely intense connection form with this only seconds-old child. His mother and I were on good terms and we just held him and cried. He had some heart issues and was in the NICU for a few days. I held him for hours. I was so deeply concerned for my son's well-being. He was moments into his life and already had issues holding him back from the perfect world I was imagining for him. I got an email about 6 weeks later with the results of the paternity test my mother insisted upon. 0% chance of being Tim's father. How do you deal with that? The emotions had been established. Did I simply let them go? I still haven't really figured it out. I was furious that I was forced to grow up for no reason, if that makes any sense. Regardless, I had a strange mixture of grief-lined relief and loss-based sadness. I feel better for the experience, and hope to have a friend of the family type relationship with him one day. However, it's simply been dismissed from my mind for sanity's sake. Whoa, what a roller coaster of emotion. I think one of the unsung heroes in this story is your girlfriend, who, at such a young age of 19, stuck by you through all this crap, when 99.9% of people her age would nope the heck out of there. I broke up with a girl after less than a year, due to her loose morals. A short time later, she calls and says she's pregnant, and because I had slept with her a few times after the breakup, I believed her when she said it was mine. Couldn't convince her to abort, accepted the fact I was having a kid, talked with her and her mother about names, and what would happen when it was born. Went through all the emotions and feelings of being a father for the first time. Fast forward to the due date, hadn't heard from her at all. Got a call from a friend to say they saw her at the hospital a few days earlier. Called her, ignored the anger I felt towards being left out of the birth, went to her house. The baby was asleep, sat there for a while, walked out not knowing how I felt about the situation. Fast forward again, child is 2 years old, bump into her at a store. She asks about child support. I see the clut. I see the clut. I see the clut. I see the clut. I say yes, I'm happy to pay child support after a DNA test. More fast forwarding. Test comes back negative. I remain humble and don't give her any grief about it. Few months later my friend calls and asks where I got the DNA test from. Surprisingly, we are all friends nowadays. The daughter is 6. The father sees her occasionally. I stop by every now and then with my kids for play dates. Small town. Well, after my girlfriend committed suicide, her family came to my house and I asked if I could keep the girls. They hummed and hawed and said yes. The next day they asked for a meeting with my family and we went and they said they are gonna take the girls. Which I had no idea. I already had custody of them through something called loco parentis, stepping in as a parent. I'm from Canada by the way. After the funeral they took the girls, which would actually be them kidnapping. They said they would let the girls come and stay with me during spring break and summer break. They were in BC and the law here states that if someone stays in a province for more than 3 months they are considered residents. I picked them up within 3 months. I also consulted a lawyer and she advised I get a parenting order kit and a guardianship order kit. So I did and filled them out. I went and picked the girls up and filed them. The only person I am fighting is the deadbeat dad who doesn't have a lawyer either, and he is agreeing I keep the girls as well, as long as he gets some visitation rights. The lawyer told me the grandparents don't have a leg to stand on. While they were there at the grandparents where they still have a couple adult children staying. My girlfriend's sister sent me a text saying she got beat up by her brother and the girls witnessed it and that her mom just watched, and also that the girls aren't safe there. I kept this text and filed it with the court. Also, when my girlfriend was texting me telling me she was gonna commit suicide, she told me to keep the girls. Another text I kept and filed too. I got letters from the school saying they were happy and in good health. A letter from a lady that witnessed their well-being and how I am a good father. This is all filed. But frick yeah, I am calling a dang lawyer tomorrow. You guys scared me good. I'm so sorry to hear about your late girlfriend. The text should all be enough to woo the court in your favor to take them hopefully. I dodged this one. Dated a young single mom once before I got married. She had one daughter barely a year old. We went out for a short period of time. Broke it off and then she emailed me out of the blue about 6 months later saying she gave birth to my son. I said, cool, let's organize a DNA test before we talk any more about this. Never heard from her again. I'm pretty sure she was pregnant at the time of us dating and then decided to pin it on me because I make good figures. Heck, that may be the only reason why she went out with me for all I know. I said, cool, let's organize a DNA test before we talk any more about this. Never heard from her again. You would be a bad TV show writer. This Reddit question is all me. Short version. Girlfriend says she's pregnant. I let her move in with me. My daughter is born. Because of her past addictions, I don't sign the birth certificate. Few months go by. Mom leaves daughter with her mom because of postpartum depression, when actually it was a M addiction. So I have to fight her parents in court for custody. The state of Kansas is on their side. So they give me 1 day with my daughter. Next month I get 2 days. So I get up to 5 days a week full time in 6 months. After about 1.5 years, her parents decide they want child support. So the state does a swab test. And I'm not the father. My world fell apart. About 1 year goes by and her biological father left the state. Her mother and I stay in touch and slowly get reintroduced to my daughter. Now she is 6. She calls me dad. The only thing is the hoops I have to jump through to see her. I have to give mom gas money. I have to buy whatever she needs while with mom. Even though she still lives with grandma, I have to kiss her butt or else I'm threatened by not seeing her. I'm not allowed to go to school functions. No PTA. I only get to see her for a part of the weekend. So it's good and bad. She has a dad and is happy, and that's all that really matters. But I'm not around enough to do any parenting. I'm just weekend dad trying to make her happy in the short time we get. Now she's 6. has her own mind and ideas and doesn't listen and doesn't take me serious. Has taken me years to recover. Not sure I actually have. It has ruined other relationships that should have been amazing. 28 now and happened when I was 21. Most days I am fine, but when I am in a bad mood the memories rear their ugly little heads and bring me down. I haven't met anyone in person who I can even remotely relate with because of it. My family supported me 100% of the way, but it hits a man in the soul with such a primal force I don't wish it upon my enemies. Any woman who does this to a child and man should be ashamed. The mental anguish can be horrible. It really is a terrible thing to lie about. I don't see how a woman could live with herself after doing that. Soul searching. I found out my 3-year-old wasn't mine about a year ago when she was 2. I wound up leaving the mother of the child and, for a time, the child. After a few weeks of being on my butt and in a horrible place I kind of realized it didn't matter what the biology said. I stayed broken up with the mother but I took her to court for visitation. Now I have my daughter half the time and I've never once regretted it. The most challenging thing has been my family's reaction. Several members of my family strongly disagree with my decision, which has created friction. But at the end of the day I respected their choices to be involved or not be involved. It's hard to explain it to some people and I don't know how I'll explain it to my daughter when the time comes, but I know I've had a positive influence on her and that I'm a good dad, and more importantly that I want to be a dad. It's just about the only thing I can truly say I'm good at. The whole ordeal has made it clear that biology, to me, is overrated. When I look at her it's true that I don't see a child that looks like me staring back, but I see myself in her mannerisms and her speech patterns and her budding sense of right and wrong. The parts of me that are in her are so much deeper than her skin. And that's what matters to me. Watching her step over an ant pile, look up at me and say we don't step on ants. Their friends, or listening to her exclaim balls when she drops something is a lot more satisfying and important than the color of her eyes could ever be. And I have faith that when she gets older and I've had that conversation with her, she'll see that I'm her dad, not because of a function of law or a biological link, but because of the single best choice I've ever made. I found out that my dad wasn't my biological father when I was 11 and it made me respect him so much more than I already did. He didn't have to raise me. He didn't have to love me, but he chose to. Since then, I've met my biological father and that made me realize how lucky I am that I wasn't raised by him. I found out when my daughter, Brit, was 5 years old. Her mother, Haley, and I had been divorced since she was 2. My mother convinced me to do an at-home paternity test because she was convinced she wasn't biologically mine. Turns out she was right. Since I was military and Haley moved back home, Brit and I didn't have much of a relationship anyway, so I took Haley to court for revocation of my rights and responsibilities. After about 18 months and a significant chunk of money, I was no longer Brit's father. I haven't spoken to either of them since. One thing I can't believe in this thread are the number of stories where people take back their cheating, so I'd never be able to trust them again after deceiving me into thinking it's my kid, and I'd probably do the same thing you did. My 9-year-old son is not mine. I raised him since he was 6 months old. I have a 7-year-old daughter with her and have been divorced for almost 4 years. I still treat him as my own equal to the girl. I bring him over every weekend and calls me daddy. I came back to 2 envelopes. One was my university results and the other was a DNA test. Passed and negative. I was sure the kid was mine and had put off the test for 3 years. I made one final email to her, shaking with a mixture of rage, relief and sadness, asking her to never contact me again. I walked away. It was very hard, but the child's mom was psycho. I got a paternity test because she refused to let me or my fam see the baby. I took the opportunity as a get out of jail free card. The little girl was 2. Wall of text and life story incoming. This is an incredibly defining subject in my life, and because of it I have become an incredibly lucky father and learned how to be a man early in life. My wife and I met in high school, and we started dating when we were 17. After about 6-7 months we broke up when her abusive and drug addict older boyfriend got out of jail on a gun charge. We went our separate ways and I was really hurt because I was young and in love. Another 6 months go by and I had heard last she was pregnant, but the abuse had continued and they had moved out of town together. One day my best friend are at Walmart in our town, and as we are walking in there she is with her mom and very visibly pregnant. I knew something had happened and she had finally gotten away from him just by the look of shame on her face when she saw me. I smiled and said hi and moved on. Inside I talked to my friend about how I had butterflies and I couldn't believe she was back in town because her mom lived right down the road from me. Being the best friend he is, he told me to let it be since she had broken my heart and not to forget that. But then we left the same time that they did, and we had a passing smile again and moved on. I let it stew, and that night after my friend had went to bed, I left my house and walked down to her mom's house with a piece of photograph printer paper with call me and my number written on it. The next day I'll never forget when she called me, and we decided to have dinner at one of our old favorite places downtown. That was 10 years ago in September and our 5th wedding anniversary, and our oldest daughter is 8, and while she's not biologically mine, the father has never had a single interest or even made a move at contact. I have spent my entire adult life caring for this little girl, because she is a product of the love of my life. I'm in the process of adopting this year. We had child right after we got married, who turns 4 this June. Moral of the story is, it doesn't take anything to make a baby, but it takes every ounce of who you are as a man to raise one. Regardless of if it is yours or not, you make that choice yourself. In the process of fighting against paying child support, I know my confession isn't going to be popular around here, but it's true. I pretty much took care of the kid for the first 9 months of his life thinking, for the majority of the time, he was mine before it came out that his slag of a mum had been fricking around the entirety of our relationship. Furthermore, found out the pregnancy wasn't accidental, but completely orchestrated to rue me into a marriage. Also, her night job wasn't so much of a full-time 3rd shift job, but mostly a part-time job, and her fricking random dudes and her boss. After 9 months she told me she was leaving with the child over dinner with her friends, who we were double dating with. Also, she was fricking them and moving in with them. After about 3 months of that, she moved across the country and disappeared. The cherry on top was that she wanted nothing to do with me until I cast my mother out of my life for marrying a man who abused me as a child, among her own abusiveness and other things. So my mother, desperate to have someone in her life and refusing to believe the child wasn't her grandson, did something to give her way too much personal information on me. She randomly emailed me one day with a list of demands from me, or she was going to sue for back child support, blackmail. I refused, because legally I could still be held accountable for child support even if I paid her list of demands off, which is probably her end game anyway. Not that anyone here, or the court, cares. But her manipulations pushed me way over the edge and left me pretty suicidal for years. And for those wondering how I'm being held accountable for child support, before I knew about the frick ton of fuckery she was doing, I signed the affidavit for the child at the hospital. I didn't really know what I was doing as I was stupid, 21, and spent the last 72 hours with her and the child and barely any sleep through the labor. Man, I'd leave the fricking country. Start fresh if the courts are fricking you. One I can finally relate to. I married a lovely woman in 2002 and we had a daughter. 10 years on, the wife died of lung cancer. Then a guy turns up at my doorstep claiming my daughter was in fact his. After arguments and whatnot, we decide to end all of this with a simple paternity test. She wasn't mine. I took it through the courts to keep my daughter and eventually won. Even though she's not my blood, I raised her and gave her everything she ever wanted. She is well aware that I'm not her real dad, but I'm the only one she's ever known. She is well aware that I'm not her real dad. Yeah, you are. You're just not her bio dad. He lives with his mom now. I see him sometimes. I was living as a single dad with full custody. I had him till he was 8. I always suspected, from pregnancy to the moment I held him at birth. I knew, but I was 18. She was 16. I tried to do the right thing. It kind of slowly destroyed me inside over years until I got a test done. I guess it finalized my feelings. I love him, but he isn't mine. He should be with his mom. He has a stepdad and 2 brothers there. He still calls me dad and he knows, but I have no rights. I am not legally a parent. I see him when my mom takes him for visits sometimes. I don't want him to think I abandoned him. But I couldn't continue a life based on a lie, a falsity that I would never have agreed to. I kind of suspect to get downvoted to heck as people tend to scream how blood doesn't matter. It's not about that. Maybe I can't explain it, even to myself. But this path feels like the right thing to do. I have to believe my choice is right, and that in the special time I did have with that boy that I impacted his life for the better. Some people are upset and saying I just abandoned him. It's not like that, but I wouldn't expect you to be able to set aside your emotions. I'm not able to set aside mine. Little boy shouldn't be raised by a man who can't say he loves you without condition. I do love him. That's why I think he should be with his actual family. I hate his mother. She sure loves him though. It's the con that fricks with you. You shouldn't have to live up to Reddit's standard of what a person should do. I would hate being conned too, especially an expensive con. Utterly broke me. I hadn't been with the mother long and had no reason to distrust her. The relationship broke down shortly after the baby was born. However, I was determined to make things work for the sake of the kid. Meanwhile, she slowly pushed me further and further away. Made plans to have the kid for Christmas first one. She calls me the night before saying she's gone away and I can't see him. After initial panic, worrying she was running off with my son, she drops the bombshell that he's not mine, with a pic of a paternity test she took with the real father. I've heard people say they are heartbroken before, but never believed it possible until then. Put me in a really bad place, and even now on a bad day the memories can set me off. Thankfully I have since met a wonderful woman and have a daughter with her. However, the wounds never heal. Best bet of it all is the ex refuses to accept she did anything wrong. When I first found out, I tried to speak to her, pretty calmly, to try and get my head around how someone could do this. She genuinely showed no remorse for her actions. That alone hit me hard, how someone who I loved and who I believed loved me could be so cold. I'm pretty sure my youngest son isn't mine. Found out my ex was cheating on me quite a bit, and he is so much not like me it's crazy. When she left, she abandoned the boys. The other is very assuredly mine, completely, and left the country, so they're in my custody. So he's still here, and is now a teenager. I'm not going to tell him, and I'd rather not find out myself because I don't want him to be at any risk of her taking him. I divorced her and fought for rights with the kiddo. It's not the child's fault the mom's a shithead. It was a devastating time to go through. I still spend time with him and he knows I'm not his father. Sorry for short answer. Getting ready for work. Story time. Back when my wife was young and dating, we had our ups and downs. We separated with each other for a while but came back. Well, during that separation period she hooked up with a guy that is like a family friend. Due to the time period she found she was pregnant, it felt like it was mine. My dad was happy I wasn't gay, but pee off that I knocked up a girl. Well, 9 months later and so on, my son was born. I knew he wasn't mine because of his chin, but everyone tried to convince me. Even my parents thought he looked like mine. But I stuck around. I loved her and married her. I couldn't see a kid be born without a father, so I claimed he was mine and cared less. As he aged, it started becoming more apparent that he wasn't mine, but I didn't care. But somehow my wife did, and thought it would turn me away. It was eating her alive with those crazy ideas. So I told her once he was 3 that I just don't care if he isn't mine. What is the point if he is mine? We made mistakes and pressed on together. 11 years it has been, and a total of 4 kids. I don't regret nothing. While I may wanted to dodge the bullet back then, I am glad I stuck to it. I've raised my daughter since birth. Her mother split when our daughter was 2 months old. I found out there is a high chance she isn't mine. Tests don't matter. She's my daughter. She turns 3 in October and we are a team. Found out before anything happened because I demanded a test. 99% was not mine. She broke down in tears. I ended it, of course. The father was a married guy too. Well, she was 2 months old. I took her mom to court over it and demonstrated that she knew who the real father was, and now I have no responsibility in the matter. That was the end of it, legally. Emotionally, it's taken a while to deal with that kind of betrayal. We weren't married, fortunately, but we had been dating for almost a decade. I fell in love with a girl when I was 17. She was 16. I didn't know she was already a couple months pregnant. After we banged the first time she told me she was pregnant. I did the right thing and took care of her and I was happy. She actually had banged a random dude and got pregnant before I met her. She told me the truth a month before the child was born. I loved her and I would have stayed, but she was a liar and cheated on me while I was trying to do a good thing and help raise her kid. I realized what I was doing was fruitless, so I just left. The child had a terrible childhood and has issues with not knowing who her father is. She is now 25 years old and still considers me her father. I have 2 older children from a previous marriage. My youngest is turning 1 this October. He's not biologically mine because my current wife and I had difficulty conceiving. So we agreed to go to a sperm bank after IVF had failed to do its thing. Does not matter. For all intents and purposes, the little turd is mine and I love him just as much as I love his sisters. And my wife loves my daughters as if they were hers. I had a hunch it wasn't mine. Might have been the fact that she was 5 months pregnant when I met her. She was still beautiful to me, inside and out, and her jerk of an ex-boyfriend at first wanted nothing to do with the kid. I date her for a year and we get married. Ex-boyfriend keeps promising to spend more time with the kid, but this also included doing M with her H during a weekend at their house. So our wife got full custody. Not sure how to tell kid this. He is 6 now, and gosh darn, he is just swell. To me, he is my son, and always will be. To me, he is my son, and always will be. Not just to you. You will always be his dad to him too. Ultimately, when he's old enough to know the whole story, he'll still know who his dad is. The guy that's been there for him his whole life and loves him unconditionally. So I'm going through this right now. My daughter is 2 and about a year ago I found out she wasn't mine. I didn't care, I love that little girl to death. My ex became so cold to me and my family. She had been my best friend since we were 10, that my mom convinced me to walk away from both of them because she knew one day my ex would try to take my daughter away. I lasted about 24 hours before I couldn't take my ex begging me to be her dad and promising me it would never change. I couldn't handle the thought of losing my little one when there was no reason to. Here we are a year later and my ex is pretty serious about a new guy and doesn't want me in the picture because no child should have to deal with divorced parents is what she tells me. She's lied and used me countless times in the last year. Now our divorce hearing is finally coming up and she's made it very apparent a DNA test will be the first thing she has done. Can't go a day without thinking how I might lose the best thing to ever happen to me. 2 years ago my wife cheated on me with my best friend. He died in a freak accident before my daughter was born, and she passed during childbirth. I know my daughter isn't mine by blood, but dang anyone who says she isn't mine. I love her and will raise her to be a survivor in this crappy world. My teenage son is cold and cynical now, but he has become an amazing man and brother who loves her the same. They are everything to me. 2 years ago my wife cheated on me with my best friend. He died in a freak accident. Right. No, but seriously, you're a great man. Father's isn't one who donates the sperm. Father is the one who looked into the chick's eyes and promised to take care of them. I'm a father of 5. 4 biological and 1 from an affair she had when we were married. I have custody of all 5 and absolutely no one treats her different. My family knows, but they also know it's my choice. She loves me and I love her and that's all she needs. I give her everything she wants. Her mother always threatens to take me to court to guise the bio father his rights because he asked for them. I tell her good luck. I have a lawyer on retainer just for that. Shoot's gonna hurt the fan one day and he'll be ready. But for now he'll enjoy her sweet kisses every morning. Good for you. Make sure you keep all records, medicals, school, etc. for when the time comes to show it to the court. Heck, if you have a great lawyer you could get child support from your ex. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.